My name is Ruha Fifita, and I work at QAGOMA as the Curatorial Assistant for Pacific Art. But I was born and raised in Tonga, and raised in Tonga. So yeah, came to study.
Beautiful. Could you tell us a little bit about what are we doing here today, and how does the Tongan community weaving a traditional Tongan whale link to the project that you're running here at the Art Gallery?
Great, thanks. Yes, so as part of the Asia Pacific Triennial this year, we have two projects that are being from artists that live and work in Tonga. And so this workshop that's happening behind us is part of the installation work for Seleka International Art Society Initiative's artwork, and they will have quite a major installation that involves building a Tongan whale that will house a series of paintings. And so we've collaborated with the Brisbane Tongan Community. I'm very grateful for their support in helping to weave the pola, so the coconut fronds that will be used for the exterior of that whale.
What was the significance of involving a local diaspora community in a project that's actually got artists from overseas?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so we feel as part of, this is quite a major exhibition, the Asia Pacific Triennial. It's got a lot of renown throughout the world as being a major space for sharing of Pasifika art and artists and practices. So we felt that there's such a significant and growing Pasifika community here in Brisbane, and over the years, this has been 10 years in the running, but we really recognize that there's a lot that could be done in terms of strengthening the connection that those local Pasifika or diaspora communities have to this exhibition. Often the artworks that come in are really have strong connections to Indigenous knowledge and practices that have a lot of significance for people from those places. And so this workshop is actually part of what we're calling the APT10 Community Engagement Project, where the gallery is seeking to learn about ways that we can strengthen the connection of this exhibition to the local communities, so that to find those points of mutual benefit and being able to connect with artworks and the knowledge and values that they carry with them. Yeah.
In terms of this particular project here today with the weaving of a traditional Tongan hut, for visitors to the art gallery who are not Tongan, what is something that you'd like, personally, what is something you'd like them to take away from seeing Tongan culture, which they may have never seen in their life before?
Yeah, well, I think something that's really beautiful about Seleka's project is that the way that they work in Tonga is very much honouring the connections that they have to their village and to their community. And so they think not just about the artwork that they create, but the relationships that they build with their community and the spaces that they shape to foster artistic expression and give voice to different ways of seeing things and the use of different materials in their community. And so it was really important for the artists to be able to think about how that sense of community collaboration could be extended to here in Brisbane. And having these weavers join, today we started actually with a conversation and meeting the artists, but it's really to celebrate that art in Tonga is something, and the practices that exist, but the culture is really one that's communal and collective, and I think the artists were really excited to be able to honour that also in a work that even they haven't met people, but it's such a strong collaboration and so much love and warmth has come from the conversations that really have resulted in this collaboration from across countries. So it's been really nice to see.
You mentioned there about relationships and so forth. How has QAGOMA overcome the barrier of the global pandemic and of course border closures, which has disabled our artists from Tonga to actually be here physically with our community today?
No, as you can imagine, it's a real sense of disconnection not to be able to visit and meet with audiences and to even be, have the hands-on relationship with the work that's being installed. And so, it's never going to replace the richness of an in-person interaction, but we have tried to overcome in the sense of recording a lot of Zoom, trying to create spaces where we hear from the artists and platform things and they're recorded as a resource so that audiences can go and find and listen to artists speak about their work. But I think this has been a really special space, and the exhibition goes over 5 months. So we're this relationship now built with the Brisbane Tongan community. You know, the gallery, we're looking around, and with other Pacific communities that are connected to other projects, really looking over the next 5 months to be really adaptive and creative in ways that we continue to engage with those communities. But it's been a lot over Zoom and just really amping up the level of correspondence. You know, on Facebook it's constant. A lot of lives are going to be happening as the install goes up, trying to find a way to really get great photography and footage and make sure that all makes its way back to the community. We also really encourage the artists to display their work locally and supported them to do that, so that, you know, the local community sees what's going. I think it's really beautiful from Tonga in particular, the artists that are participating in APT10 really see themselves as a team representing their country, and so they're kind of collaborating and have been talking to each other, and yeah, it's kind of nice in that way that there's a sense of solidarity and finding ways to connect that back to their own communities back in Tonga Tapu.
Some have described the contemporary art scene in Tonga as developing and emerging.
Yeah.
How do you feel? What's your views on of where we are with contemporary art in the Kingdom of Tonga today in 2021?
Yeah, it's an interesting description. I think it depends on what we define contemporary art to be. I personally feel that there's been what some might describe as crafts, these skills that are just really, you know, come from the skill of being able to work with your hands and take your natural resources and transform them into something beautiful and often useful, but not that this is art also, and it's been so strong in the Pacific for generations. I think in terms of forms of like painting that are less familiar, that I guess is definitely something that is gaining strength, and it's really coming into its own. You know, you can see distinct styles that emerge really from artists that have a strong connection to place and the stories that are really rooted locally in the history and in the environment there. So it's exciting to see that happening, but I think, you know, it's just when something's organic, it feels slow, but I think we're actually at a really, it's been years in the making. Even Seleka, I think it's been 8 or 10 years they've been active in developing their particular form of practice. So yeah, I mean, emerging, but I hope it's always emerging, always something new emerging, I guess is the way to say it, but yeah.
Something I picked up on as you were sharing there about organic in terms of the art form, and this is obviously the weaving of the Tongan whale today is a very traditional art form. It's been around for centuries. There was a request made earlier today in the meeting about the donation of old shoes and old books. So I'm curious to see what's the link between what I perceive as old used items in a modern world, and how that links back to our traditional art that's going to be on display at this exhibition.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I think the artist would probably be the best place to answer the question, but I think in my understanding of the project, they're really celebrating that, you know, having Seleka themselves, their own studios, they build from new and found and recycled materials, the spirit of making the best of what you have, and in things that have a story. So that's the same with any traditional resources that we use. They have a story, they have a significance, and I think they were really keen on kind of opening up that approach, that we do have natural resources that have story and connection, but we have all these new things also that are coming in that may be imported, but as they become part of our daily lives and as a community, whether living in Tonga or outside of Tonga, they also regain a certain significance that's collective, and it's a way of, you know, there are other resources that we can use and repurpose and learn to be economical with and create beauty, and it's something that as part of our daily lives is there in our space always. So when they're thinking about environments, I think it's this question of creating an environment that encourages people to think about what else is possible in this, you know, a contemporary world where there is so much of a blend of new knowledge, old knowledge, new technologies, old resources, and really to just create an environment that says to people, wow, there's to really keep pushing ourselves to explore how that opens up new opportunities for creation and creative thinking.
Now, the Gallery of Modern Art obviously showcases art from around the world as well as locally. You know, currently there's a European art exhibition running at the moment.
Yeah.
This is obviously, as a Pacific woman and as a Tongan woman, how significant or how important is this particular project to your heart as a Tongan Pacific migrant who's living now here in Australia?
Yeah, well, thank you for that question. Yeah, it's been, you know, I'm also new to the role of curatorial work, and it's been really special to be able to work with artists that you have a personal relationship with as well, and even this community, you know, finding people that know your dad and your uncle and your grandparents and maybe know you better than you know yourself and your sense of place. And I think particularly with my focus has been on working with artists from Fiji and Tonga, and you know, being and having lived in those places, I think has been so, and to have connected with the artists previously before coming into this role was so beneficial to being able to know the layers underneath their work, the journey they've been on to really get to where they are, and the significance of the way that they work in a very different context, so back in the islands. And so yeah, it's so nice to see that we can celebrate that these practices that, you know, come from small places really have something important to say to it on a global stage and in a global conversation about the needs of the world we live in, and the patterns of thought and action that are required to find new solutions to overcoming challenges that are shared and connect back to these small islands.
Other than the Kingdom of Tonga, what other Pacific cultures or communities can we expect in the upcoming art exhibition?
Yeah, so APT is really driven by research, and the process of selecting and identifying artworks starts, you know, 3-4 years out before the trip happens. And so because the curatorial team is working on it for that duration, they really want to ensure that the projects come and they gradually build out of relationships and the research that's done. And so this time, although every exhibition doesn't cover all of the Pacific, we kind of expand the focus based on those relationships and the research that we've been able to achieve over that time. So this time, I guess we'll have artists from Papua New Guinea that are coming in, particularly the Urumat peoples, artists from Tonga, Fiji, Samoan artists that live in the diaspora, a series of artists that are based in New Zealand but speak to, have roots from around the Pacific. And we also have a pretty major project, so artists from New Zealand, you know, a Maori project that's connected to the Ngaitahu community in New Zealand, and different iwi. We have a pretty major project called Air Canoe, which will feature, this is one of our first engagements with the Northern Oceania region, so it'll bring together artwork and practices from Pohnpei, from Koshai, from the Federated States of Micronesia, from Chuuk, from the Marshall Islands, and we also are working with artists from Hawaii for this particular exhibition. So there's quite a broad range, both the artists from the islands and those that live in the diaspora here in Australia and New Zealand.
Finally, is there anything additional that we haven't discussed today that you'd like to add? Could be in terms of an experience, could be in terms of the exhibition, anything you just feel is important that you'd like our viewers to know about regarding this upcoming exhibition?
Well, I think something that we've been really trying to learn about and give attention to for this exhibition is that you know, we kind of, the artwork that comes here obviously has relevance and is of interest to a very broad audience, but we're also learning to acknowledge that there's a particular relationship and richness of the people that are from those places that these artworks represent, being able to engage and come and benefit from the knowledge and the conversations that can be stimulated by artworks here. So really just want to encourage people to join us in learning about that, seeing what this offers a local community. And I think particularly interesting in this COVID world where there's a lot of emphasis on what can be done locally, just to feel really welcome. Like, this is a public space and it's meant for everyone. I know galleries are not always the most comfortable place for people to be if they haven't been there before, and particularly this places can be quite challenging to get to. But the exhibition will be there for 5 months, and just to reach out if you are part of a community or an organization that is from any of these places and feels that there would be value in finding a new way to engage with the exhibition. We'd be really happy to hear about it.
Fantastic. Ruha, thank you so much for joining us here on Pasifika TV and Radio. Malo Aupito.
Thank you very much.